Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we dig in deep to analyze the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. I'm Andy Nelson from thenextreel.com.
And I'm Pete Wright, also from The Next Reel.
It is Friday, and we are looking at Jon Favreau's 2008 film Iron Man with our guests closing out the week with us, Scott Carrelli and Nick Jimenez from the Cornetto Minute.
Hello. Hey, congratulations on hitting the hour mark, gentlemen.
You are with us as we crack the first hour of Iron Man. What a feeling. What a feeling. On today's show, IM060 starts with Obadiah telling Tony that he's got to give him something to turn this thing around. And it ends with Tony making his first successful landing. Mm-hmm. This is a good minute. We've got some good stuff going on here. It starts off, we're still up in Tony's living room, finishing up this conversation that Tony is running away from, I guess you could say. He's taking his pizza and he's going. And get to wrap up this scene with him and Obadiah and Pepper.
Yeah. It's kind of funny watching this one after our conversation yesterday about Obadiah's relationship with Tony and just how much they knew about Obadiah's character in this scene when they shot this scene, as we were kind of speculating about, did they know he was going to be Ironmonger in this movie? Did they know he was going to be our big bad at the time they shot this scene? Because this is an important scene in their relationship, and it also gives us this nice little turn right in the first, 20 seconds where we get to see, even though they're fighting, there's this lovely moment where he says, Obadiah says, I'm keeping my pizza, but here, you can have a piece. Take it with you. And I love that moment because they're like collegial, like they're still hanging with each other, even though we know eventually where things are going to go.
Sure. It adds an element of pathos and tragedy, of not to bring up Spider-Man 2 once more, but, to a lesser extent, you really care about Peter Parker and Otto Octavius's relationship in that movie. And it feels like something is lost when the two finally come to computer animated blows. And it's a little less defined here. You don't quite get who Tony and Obadiah are to each other, whether it's more paternal or brother or mentor-mentee, but there are moments of humanity between the two of them, like this little pizza moment, that make it more interesting.
Yeah, it reminds me of the moment we had earlier with them after the press conference when Tony, he leaves and Obadiah comes and finds him at the big arc reactor, and they kind of have that initial conversation, and he looks at the mini arc reactor on his chest, and it's just, it does feel like that scene felt very, paternal. He's like, I told your dad I'd take care of you, whatever it is. It has that kind of that paternal vibe. And I feel like this scene's developing that a little bit, where it's a little bit of that paternal feel still. Tony's kind of acting like that spoiled teenager. But there is kind of that partnership, I feel. And I feel like the way that they kind of act, there's a little bit of that back and forth that feels like they are on kind of equal footing.
Yeah.
It's nice.
And and the thing about this is that Obadiah absolutely has a point.
Oh, sure.
He comes back, he says they're not going to do weapons anymore. Okay, great. Well, what are we going to do? Well, I don't know. And I got no ideas because
right.
I'm focused on this other thing. And it's like, okay, that I can't tell you about. Okay, well, can we do something about this thing in your, this thing in your chest seems pretty cool. Like, it's renewable energy. It's, it's a whole thing. Like we could switch gears and switch to that. No, you can't have that either. And it's like, well, you got to give us something, man, because like we're literally a company doing nothing but twiddling our thumbs right now.
It makes a lot more sense with Obadiah wanting to kind of take over the company, because all of that feels so much more in line with a CEO of a company who all of a sudden is just running the company into the ground. And you can see why the investors are trying to close him out, because it makes perfect sense. You wouldn't want somebody like that leading your company. It's very different from the way it was in the comics, where Obadiah was a competitor who came in and actually bought out Stark Industries when Tony was having his alcohol issues. I really like what they did with the film.
Yeah, absolutely.
I also like that we get a great stretch from Pepper in the back. Clearly not very interested in this conversation. She's just like, I'm sitting back here bored working on my laptop.
Sure. Well, she has her own. She probably has her own fires to put out and stuff to do. She's back there building the Goop website.
Preparing for all those future lawsuits.
Yeah.
He's busy laptoping.
It's like if you watch The Office, sometimes if you watch like the background actors, they're working on the scripts for The Office because they were also writers.
Oh,
yeah, right. That's exactly
She's
right.
working on Goop.
That's amazing.
We go from up here as this guy. Did you guys have anything else upstairs?
No, I mean, other than when he opens that box of pizza, that pizza looks disgusting. It's just so old and dried out.
It's like end of the workday pizza.
Yeah. Oh, it is not good.
It definitely answered the question. There is no raised pizza oven on the Stark Jet, or that pizza would have looked great.
Yeah.
That was what I was hoping that we would answer, and we answered it.
Unless we're to believe that just Pepper and Obadiah did that by themselves.
Just made that pizza look awful.
Yeah, it's like they've been tossing it around. It's like none of it's connected.
Because it's none of it's connected.
Oh, it's like sliding on the
when
cardboard.
you cut a pizza, like it's still, the cheese still makes it kind of stick together.
Yeah.
Even when you cut it into slices.
This pizza, there's like no weight to it anymore. It's just like all dried up. There's no moisture to it. Pizza's got to have some moisture to it.
It's like Obadiah went to a New York pizza place and then went around and built a pizza out of one slice from everybody's pizza in the place.
From all the Ray's Pizzeria. Yes.
Yeah.
He didn't know which Tony would like, and so he was trying to spread it around.
One is Ray's famous, one is famous Ray's.
And it's really disappointing because
that is not one family pizza.
And it's disappointing. I feel like Tony Stark, the movie was able to make Burger King cheeseburgers look really delicious earlier in the movie, and yet it's unable to do so with like New York pizza.
Which just seems like a travesty. I feel like
the box bends and the pizza like peels. Ugh.
The more I look at the pizza, it does look like pizza that's been sitting on set for a very long time.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
It's like weird prop pizza. I'm not into it.
But then we get to jump back. We go downstairs with Tony and we jump back into our favorite garage set.
Yeah.
This is the grand payoff.
Yeah. No, payoff's a great word. And I was really, I don't know, like watching these minutes in a row, I was really surprised at how quickly the payoff to him flipping and hitting the wall and getting sprayed. Like we're already getting the payoff. And it's kind of, there's something to be said that this is like 59 minutes into the movie, an hour into the movie, and we haven't seen the Iron Man suit yet.
Mm-hmm.
And like, how do you keep the audience from getting bored? How do you trick them into not caring that you haven't seen Iron Man yet? And I think the secret is you give the audience these little victories and payoffs to like, we know this guy just got his butt handed to himself when he flipped. And now we're going to see him master the repulsor rays. We're going to get that little catharsis. And I think it's those little tricks that keep you from caring that we aren't seeing like big summer action yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we do get the answer we were asking in earlier minutes earlier in the week. How long has he been doing this? This is day 11.
Oh, wow.
Day 11, test 37, configuration 2.0, as he says.
He's a fast worker.
He is a fast worker. Well, I was looking at it. It's like, he still has scars on his face. And I was like, oh, that was probably from when he slammed into the ceiling. And I'm like, no, he had those earlier. So he's kind of continued to have these little marks on his, very tiny. And actually, by this minute, I think they're gone. But in the previous minutes, he kind of still had them. And it was like, I think that they were the final remnants from his time escaping from Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm. And he's not partying anymore.
Right.
He doesn't really have like a social life.
He's basically working. He's working in his basement 24/7. I mean, he says, Obadiah, like no more press conferences. He's keeping himself out of the public spotlight. So I think he's basically in his basement 24/7 working on stuff.
Yeah.
So day 11, that's like, full-time inventor hours.
Yeah. 20 hours a day, probably.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he has coffee cups everywhere.
Upside down
coffee cups.
I do have a question about the Iron Man suit just in general, because here we have him sort of inventing how this technology is going to work, right? You're going to have the repulsor technology. You're going to have the feet be the main power source, the main sort of rocket boost source. And then you have the arms to sort of counterbalance yourself.
The flight stabilizers,
Right. And we see him doing this, and it's a struggle, right? He is having a hard time, like sort of staying upright, and it's hard to keep your balance. It's weird. It's something that you're not used to, and it's really great because you're like, oh yeah, this makes sense to me. It makes sense that this would take a while to figure out because, that's It'd be like balancing on a big, bouncy ball or something. So I really like that about it. However, it does cause questions about all of the people who wear Iron Man suits in the future who aren't him, who pick it up like it's nothing real quick.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, which kind of an example to bring it back to what you guys are talking about in the first couple of minutes, which is we lose a little bit of that grit, that grounded energy.
Yeah.
Of like, this is how this machine works. It kind of becomes like CG fantasy suit world.
Because even Obadiah Stane, who had never worn a suit, he hadn't even seen his completed suit, and then he like shows up, puts it on, and it's just like,
It is able to go into a Rock'em Sock'em robot battle.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, exactly.
Murdering people effectively.
And that's to say nothing of Rhodey in the next film or Pepper in the third film.
I think by the time we're in the third film, I mean, those are all like self-controlled. So I don't even think Pepper's doing anything in that particular case.
She's just going on for a ride.
Like at that point, it's easier to do it because he's, like you say, he doesn't like to redo.
I guess that's true.
Or Bruce is in like a Hulkbuster.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's just like being the Hulk.
Yeah.
Dippity dippity too.
Well, it's almost like this moment of Tony learning how to pilot the Iron Man suit. It's not fair to do it this way, but it's almost like by having him learn how to do it here, he's in a way learning it for everybody in the MCU. Like they're all kind of. He's a vessel. Right. He's the vessel. And as he learns, they're all learning without knowing they've learned it.
Right. It's like, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's kind of like why he isn't weirded out when like friggin' aliens show up in Infinity War. It's because he's kind of absorbed our own. Like, we're used to it. So he is too.
Right.
They sort of have to, because you imagine how just insufferable these movies would be if we had to actually go through the learning process with every one of these characters.
Oh, yeah.
It would be impossible. It would just be impossible. So it's earned for the universe.
But imagine how big that laugh would be in Iron Man 2 if the first time Rhodey put on the suit and turned it on, he went slamming into the back wall and the thing sprayed him with the thing again. That would have been brilliant. That would have been a huge laugh. And then you just do a show
what
it once.
What a great setup and payoff that would have been.
Truly, between both movies.
Oh yeah, and then you just show it once. You show it once, and you have like, I don't know, you have Tony like clapping off camera or something. Yeah, and then you cut to he's got it and everything's fine.
It would have been huge. You're right.
Missed opportunity. That would have been fantastic.
But anyway.
So we're back in the garage and we've got all the cars.
We got all the cars. We have Dummy and you. Yu's again holding the camera and watching you hold the camera. And because we get that, we kind of dolly around that camera that you is holding. And that is like the sloppiest held camera. And it's just wobbling all over the place. So it's amazing to me that when we cut to the footage, it's as stable as it is, because it really doesn't look like it should be.
You're talking about Yu's camera?
Yu's camera. Yeah, you is the one on the right.
Vibrating in his little robot hand.
But yes, as you did point out, Pete, we do have all the cars. We've seen them before, but boy, do you get a great shot of the lineup here as he takes off. You've got the Audi R8, the 1967 Shelby Cobra, the Saleen S7, the Tesla Roadster, and then those custom motorbikes from Zero Engineering, the Samurai Choppers. Quite a lineup.
I clearly don't know my cars.
I only know them because the internet told me. I'm terrible with cars too.
It's really savvy though. It probably did do worlds to connect Tony Stark to a different kind of audience. Yeah. Where it's like, well, yes. I don't like these comic book stuff, but I love this dude has really sick taste in cars.
Yeah. And he looks like a grease monkey half the time in this.
Yeah,
this movie,
he doesn't look like Elon Musk.
Right.
Yeah, he looks like somebody who works on cars. Like, he could have gotten the specs for these cars from the developers and built them himself.
Yeah, exactly. As much as he's doing all this smart stuff, you can kind of imagine him rebuilding that 67 Cobra. I mean, that's of all of those things, that's a deeply mechanical machine. We're not talking about computers and like in the Tesla. This is something you actually have to get dirty to make this thing go, and that you're right. I mean, that connects you to, or at least vests you with an understanding of who this character is. Even now, 60 minutes into the movie, you get this picture of who this guy is.
Yeah, and like we're with him with his little victories. When he's getting it and he's getting the hang of it, we're with him, and we feel like, oh yeah, and he hasn't even hurt anyone yet, or stopped a crime.
Yeah, he's still figuring it all out.
Mm-hmm.
It works so effectively. And again, going back to Favreau, who I just think is a genius at the way that he transitions through all of these scenes of Tony's work. You know, we see him designing it. We see him working on the boot, and we see him testing the boot. He now needs flight stabilizers. We see him making the arms and testing the arms. And now we see him using the boots and the flight stabilizers all in one fell swoop at the 1%. And it works. And it's a thrill to kind of see him going through the process. And like, we're right there with him. So when he finally does take off in this and he manages to kind of control it, and we're just as thrilled as he is that he actually, you know, is kind of hovered and flown in his garage for a minute.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, and this is sort of a larger conversation about the MCU. I know we can never go back. I'm aware of that, but you know, part of me really misses Phase 1. And what these movies felt like and what they made me feel like. Now I just feel like I'm constantly saying to myself, I can't believe I'm seeing this. You know, like that's sort of what I'm saying every time. Like, I can't believe I'm watching a movie about a talking tree and a talking raccoon. You know, I can't believe I'm seeing like Thanos and, you know, Tony Stark in space. And like, I can't believe I'm seeing, you know, this and that. But you know, back in Phase 1, they were just trying to make good movies. And that was it. First and foremost, they weren't trying to like push the overarching MCU narrative forward. They were just trying to make good movies. And I miss this tone. I miss this vibe. And again, I'm saying all of this with the absolute understanding that we can never go back. No one would ever accept this era of Marvel ever again. But I do miss it. I really do.
I was just thinking it'd be cool if, you know, we see it at the beginning of that Endgame trailer that Tony Stark is in somewhat dire straits. It'd be cool to sort of bring it back around thematically. Instead of like, how does this guy get out of a cave? It's like, how does this guy survive in outer space?
Oh my God, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what they're going to do with that and how he goes. But going back to this minute, it's so nice. And I think this speaks to what you were just talking about. But I mean, I feel like, we've been talking about it all week, but I mean, this is Robert Downey Jr. in a rig, and he's kind of hanging in this interesting system where he's rigged by, you know, he's got a waist harness and it hoists him up with his feet, but his hands are kind of within it. And so the whole thing is like moving together. And if you watch the behind the scenes as he's doing it before they've removed it, it's really interesting to see the way that they make it work. And it makes it feel like it's really happening. And I think that that's something we get here that adds to that feel that you do get out of Phase 1, where it has that sense of physicality. And I really enjoy this moment because it feels like a real success, like a physical real success.
Absolutely.
Interestingly, this of the different tests that we've been seeing, this one wasn't scripted, or at least it's not in the script that I have. It goes from that first test that we had to the final test where he actually flies over all the cars and everything. So it's interesting that some of these little bits and pieces like this weren't in there. I don't know if they came in later and said, you know, we really need some more to kind of get from A to B or A to Z better. And so these were like reshoots. I'm not exactly sure, but this moment when he finally makes it work. I mean, I just remember being so exhilarated when I saw it. So I'm glad it's in here.
It's a 30-second beat in terms of cost to the film, like a 30-second, really just two cameras and an effect shot. Like, it's so valuable to the overall like tapestry of the film. It's so valuable. I can't of course I can imagine how exciting it is to go without this straight into him taking off and going for his test flight. But to have this little beat right in the middle, seeing it undone again, it just goes back to my, I know I have this weird, maybe unnatural appreciation for like getting dirty and milling metal and the manufacturing stuff, given how little I do of it in my real life. But this is earned stuff. Like it just gets your heart pounding to see the human face on top of the machine, and we just lose that as soon as he puts the mask on.
Mm-hmm.
I do question his logic based on the accidents that he's had so far of blasting himself into the ceiling and blasting himself backwards with his flight stabilizer. Now, all he's done, he's in the same place. He's just turned around 180 degrees. And it's like, if he has the same accident here, he's going to land on his cars or he's going to crash through the windows and fall into the ocean. I just feel like he's got to have a better space where he can be doing these things. So it kind of is like, I don't know if his logic is the best, but
I don't think
I guess I have to forgive him.
Like, I have no evidence that he has any of that. Like, he's missing that. What is that? Like a frontal lobe thing? Like there's a switch where he's so wealthy that he's not even thinking about those things. Like that logic doesn't even exist. I can't imagine that.
Right.
Yeah.
He's already he's completely blown a wall out with the repulsor test. Who knows what happened with his body impacting the other side? Like how,
they cut that out of your brain when you make your first billion.
Is that it's the 1% surgery?
Yeah, it's funny. I'd like to think that he's got plenty of spaces that he could do secret experiments in his different facilities that probably would be better
with like more pads,
right? With more pads, without windows that lead to off a cliff down into the ocean, without all of his expensive cars right next to it. But again, it's 1% problems that Tony's dealing with. Well, I don't have anything else for this minute. Do you guys have anything?
No.
What a great set of minutes this week.
Really great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
You guys landed on a really, it's a fun set of minutes. It's nice getting him in this place where he's really kind of starting to figure out who he's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's exciting.
He's getting strong now.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Right. Well, again, guys, thank you so much for coming on and joining us all week.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want to do a last plug? Tell people where they can find you guys?
I feel like we've been like this is the big plug, right? This is the montage of plugs that we've been moving toward.
Oh, yeah. So Scott and I, and along with a lot of other people, are sort of channeling our love for superheroes and superhero stories into an audio series called Geek by Night. That it's in its second season in a way. We in another, we've been working on the show for a lot longer than that, and so it's available now to listen to on iTunes app, podcast app, wherever you get your podcasts. And it's Geek by Night, and it is an original story audio series about a group of friends in their like late 20s, early 30s. Some a little younger than that, and they get superpowers, and it's about how it affects their normal lives, and it's about growing up. And it's also kind of inspired by our love of shows like Smallville and Buffy. And Smallville too. That's a weird one out the gate.
That was a weird one out the gate.
Much more like,
if you could have seen my face when he said Smallville, I was like, what?
Well, like the OC, Gilmore Girls. What would you say?
Buffy. I would say Buffy first and foremost.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely inspired by our love of Buffy and Spider-Man and the MCU, and it's we were talking a lot about watching people fail upward.
Sure.
As far like Tony failing, learning, changing, failing, going for, and that's definitely our underdogs.
Yeah, we got a great cast of really committed people and writers and musicians and people that are really working for free and for the love. It sometimes feels like the biggest fans of the show are the ones making it.
Yeah.
And like we're but in a really cool way, and but of course we always want more and more people to listen to it and enjoy it, because that's why we make it. So yeah, check it out. We got one season. We're working on our second season. We had a Christmas holiday special come out this past Christmas Day, but hopefully it's just as enjoyable
awesome.
now.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
And then we have our second season premiere this spring. So
nice.
Should be good. They're all like feature-length episodes. So they take a while to make, but they're all like little mini superhero movies, essentially.
What a fun idea. I love that you guys are doing that.
Absolutely. Link
So cool.
definitely in the show notes. I don't want to break your plug, but you're talking, I'm naturally clicking around on the website. What is Immunities? Is that a separate thing?
Yeah, that's another
an older show.
That's another original audio drama that someone else makes for our site.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
We don't
right.
make that one, but it is.
Okay, and I won't even talk about that.
Yeah,
one.
it is also very good and very, very popular. Much more popular than Geek by Night because it's more horror sci-fi, which tends to be more popular in the audio drama podcast land.
Mm.
So.
It's funny.
Gotcha.
We're tickled by how popular it is.
Yeah, because we work so hard on Geek by Night, and then this other guy's like, "Hey, can I do a show on your network?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure, it's pretty good." And then we put it on, and it just blows up, and we're like, "Oh, that's great." I mean,
we're so excited.
You never know.
Yeah. No, I'm so happy for him. It's amazing, but like, it's also just funny from our perspective because they're like, "Oh." Okay.
Totally. I resemble that remark. It's great. Everything about all these properties, you've got such great artwork. I mean, whoever does your artwork is just wonderful. Like, this is great stuff. Subscribed.
Thank you
so much.
You can find all of it over at justduelinggenre.com, right?
Yes, that's correct. Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Or wherever you get your podcasts. Awesome, guys. Well, everybody, that is it for today's show, and we're closing out the week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show for free at marvelmovieminute.com. Join us over in our Discord chat room, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Next Reel. If you like what we do and you want to support us and get some cool stuff, become a patron over at patreon.com/thenextreel. Until next time, true believers.